It's the old Doctor Who show, episode number 56, Attack of the Cybermen.
Go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine. You couldn't control my mind before, and you certainly can't control it now.
Would you like a jelly, Toby?
The TARDIS, when working properly, is capable of many amazing things.
Reverse the polarity of the neutron flows and the TARDIS will be free of the force field.
Well, the TARDIS is more than a machine, Stephen. It's like a person, you see.
Resulting reaction described. Are you ready?
Welcome back to the old Doctor Who show, your classic tri-weekly Doctor Who review podcast. I am Eric.
And I am Dan. And we're hosting this little shebang.
Yeah, we're back after a wonderful 3 weeks where I was in a fever delirium for at least a third of it. Funny anecdote there, I watched the Doctor Who show that we're going to review while running 102 fevers.
Oh, well.
I'm hoping that the reality of what I saw matches what you saw, so we will see how that goes. But aside from that, how are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing all right. Sorry if the audio quality is a little different here, but I'm up in Vermont and forgot to bring a microphone. So
yeah, you are
I'm recording
Vermont
this
a lot. So are you doing skiing or are you
we got
snowed in at this point?
A little bit of snow. Did some skiing. Just hanging out and getting away from the hustle and bustle.
Sounds
What
good.
about you, Eric? How is everything going in your world? Besides,
as I said, I
running
was
fevers?
sick. So yeah, I had like this crazy thing where I guess it wasn't the flu. I thought it was going to be the flu. I didn't have any flu symptoms, so there's no runny noses or stomach things or whatever. It's just all of a sudden my body started to hurt, and then my skin was burning to like the touch. I was like, that's not a normal thing.
Leprosy?
But I didn't feel like sick. I just felt like that was weird. If you touch me, it hurts. And I was like, oh, am I molting? Like, is the skin going to come off, and then feathers beautiful plumage
that'd be so
will appear?
nice.
And I'll finally turn into the pretty person I think I was born to be. Wasn't the case. And then all of a sudden I ended up having like a crazy night's sleep where I was freezing. So I was putting all these blankets on, and then I saw the outline of the blankets as like a wireframe. Like I could see the geometric shapes of everything around me, and then the room, and I was like in my head, and I could see sort of the source code of the universe, which is how I was sort of seeing it. And I was like, oh, okay, I understand. This is a simulation, and I can see parts of it. And then immediately I was like way hot, and then I took my temperature, and I was, as I said, like 102. And then that went on for 3 or 4 days I had a temperature.
That's pretty high.
Well, 102 was the peak. It was like 100, 101, around there. But no other symptoms. Like typical flu symptoms. So I don't know what I had, but I think I'm finally through it now. So that was last week, and now I'm better.
Holy
Also running that
crap.
Kickstarter, which we talked about, ends today. It won't end while we're recording it, but it'll end a few hours after. So if you haven't backed it, it's too late. Thanks for nothing.
But if you did back it, then you're going to get a whole mess of cool stuff.
Yeah, and the Kickstarter was successful, so we're able to color at least one book. I don't know if we're going to hit the stretch goal, which would have covered 2 books, but, any money over that's going to go towards the next issue.
Awesome.
So it's all good. Any Doctor Who news? Should we just jump into the review? Because I'm just wondering if there was a new trailer?
The new logo was shown, which is
Oh, I love the
nice.
new logo.
Yeah.
I really like the new logo. I think I wasn't always a huge fan. Actually, I never liked any of the new logos.
Yeah.
Except for the last one. I like the
police
the
box
way
one.
that it looks like a TARDIS.
Yeah.
The first one, like the Russell T Davies, like that dated oval with the Doctor. Like I always thought that looked very corny.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? The initial logo. So I am very happy with the new look of it. I think it's a really well designed logo. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I think it looks fine. I mean, but there's, I'd rather just the show start. Oh, by the way, I did go back because I just wanted to. We were talking about how reminiscent this Doctor is of Capaldi in certain ways. Just come back around again, and how much I tend to not really like the beginning of the Capaldi era. and how much you loved the Robin Hood episode, and I hated it. Hated it. So I went back and watched it again. And it's...
Did you still hate it?
It's actually okay. I think it's just
Yeah,
at the
so
time I wanted
around to
something
it.
different from Capaldi. And, I mean, he's still a bit... I don't know. I think he was still kind of figuring out what that character was going to be. But it wasn't as horrible as I thought.
Right. I think time will be kinder to that period. Although, I think we both agree on sort of wanting a change. So we're happy to sort of move away from the Stephen Moffat era and into a new era.
We're ready to get rid of...
against Stephen Moffat. We're ready for new stuff.
No Sonic sunglasses and guitars. That would be great. That's all I'm asking for.
But enough about new stuff, Dan.
What?
Let's talk about old stuff.
Oh my God, let's do it. Let's
talk about the peak of Doctor Who's long history.
This is the
Colin
zenith
Baker years.
right here. Everyone universally
started-
agrees that this is the best era of classic Doctor Who.
Oh,
By far.
Clearly. I
Top
think
of the
that's-
charts. So let's jump into this
hit the
gem.
button and let's hit the button and let's get into the business. The attack of the Cybermen. Doo-doo bow. Chicka bow wow. Yeah.
Keep it in.
Are you ready?
Sure.
What are you doing?
Something I should have done a long time ago. Repair the chameleon circuit.
What?
The TARDIS, when working properly, is capable of many amazing things. Not unlike myself. One of its functions is that it can change shape to blend perfectly with its surrounding environment.
I see.
Not yet, you don't. I wonder why I didn't do it before.
Look, Doctor, do you really think you're up to this? I mean, you've only recently regenerated, and yet you've undertaken so much work. Well, what I really mean to say is you still seem a little unstable.
Unstable? 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 This is me, Perry. At this very moment, I am as stable as you will ever see me. You must forget how I used to be. I'm a Time Lord. A man of science, temperament, and passion.
And a very loud voice.
This is Attack of the Cybermen, Dan. This is the first serial of season 22. Lucky season 22. I don't know why that's funny. It aired in 1985, and I don't know about you, but I feel like we've been trapped in the 84, 85. Like, there shouldn't be this many stories within these 2 years, but here we are, still in 85. Only the beginning of 85. Like, we pretty much were in 84
For 3 years.
for at least the last 15 years of this podcast. All right, this is written by Paula Moore. That's in quotes because no one's really sure who wrote this story. There's a lot of theories.
I think 3 people are pretty sure who wrote this story, at least.
Well, some people say it's Eric Seward, who's a script editor, and he wrote most of it. And there's rules that you can't be an editor and write your own. You can't edit your own story. So to circumvent that,
he wrote it with Paula Woolsey.
Yeah, but then some people
Said that
say
she didn't
Paula
really-
Woolsey, who's credited, didn't actually write it. So
Ian Levine had some
cares?
contributions. Whatever, doesn't matter.
Right.
I mean, it does matter because
you
this
yourself
story.
can figure out who wrote it.
It does
Don't
matter.
get to the review yet.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Okay, go for it.
This is directed by Matthew Robinson of the
Swiss Family fame.
Treehouse Robinsons. Yep. Yeah, I don't know what else that he had done. He did Resurrection of the Daleks, which acts as a part 1 to this, essentially.
A little bridge.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why we did this. Is a listener had told us, because I think at the end of that story, the Resurrection of the Daleks, we were like, oh, what's going to happen to the cop? And like, do we ever find out? And certainly we do.
We sure do.
In this story.
Yeah.
So the Doctor is lured to the London sewers and discovers a Cyberman plot to use time travel to divert Halley's Comet into the Earth, thus destroying the Earth and preventing the Earth from destroying the Cybermen's homeworld. Also, there's a race of nail-drying silver ladies with cold hearts and warm eyes. Dan, what did you think of this part 2 of what I'm calling the how many have to die storyline?
This is popularly known as the Lytton Chronicles, these two stories together. Just made that up.
What did you think of Attack of the Cybermen, Dan?
I thought overall there were a lot of good ideas, overwhelmed by a whole bunch of bad ones. So
Go on.
Yeah. So okay. I think that there were too many things going on, too many different plot points that were happening simultaneously. So there's a lot of cutting between them where some of them just didn't pay off and they just weren't entirely necessary. Like, I honestly don't even think you needed the Cryons in this episode. That would have been in this story. That would have been fine. We could have done without that.
Yeah, but as far as like cutting the Cryons out, then you needed something for Litton. Like he was helping them.
He could have been trying to help the people that were enslaved and digging up Telos, the human.
Well, that's true.
So I mean, there's.
Right.
Hey,
I am no. To your point,
writer.
I get it. I liked the ladies that were drying their nails.
There's a lot of
crayons.
hand acting in this.
There was so much hand acting, and they were sticking with it, and it was just so weird and creepy. And this like whole, it looked like I had also in a fever state had watched Valerian and
God.
I actually really liked it.
I want to see it.
I loved it. I was like, this is fantastic. It's like these really big imaginative worlds and really cool things, and I understand why people don't like it, and it did not do well. But in any case, it seemed like you could have taken that race of aliens and put it in that movie, and it totally would have made sense. So I liked all of the weirdness of them.
So what you're saying is Attack of the Cybermen is much better if you watch Valerian and the Planet of 1,000 Cities or whatever.
Yes.
City of 1,000 Planets first.
For me, I actually liked this story.
Okay.
A good deal. Probably more than I didn't like it. And a lot of that for me was I liked the Doctor a lot more in this story than I did in Twin Dilemma.
I
felt like this was a much better role for Colin Baker. It felt like he was still, he's establishing like that personality that's not so menacing, like where you're gonna think he's gonna turn on you. The way it was like, last time it was like he's strangling Perry and whatnot.
Yeah, I was hoping that would be like
Perry,
a running theme throughout the entire series, that he just strangles Perry every episode. But unfortunately, that's not happening, apparently.
They touch on it a little bit in this, in the beginning, right? So there's like, you're still sort of unsure about how stable the Doctor is.
That's one of the parts I actually really liked, how Perry was still kind of worried about the Doctor and saying that he wasn't stable and that he kept calling her by the wrong names, etc., which he called slips of the mind, which I thought was a nice little phrase. But then he kind of turns around on her and says, this is as stable as I'm going to get, so kind of deal with it, which I guess, I don't know. I do think he was much more likable without completely changing characters, so the character is evolving a bit. And, some people were saying that Colin Baker plays this one a little bit lighter and there's more comedy in it. While that's true, I don't think it's nowhere near where I would kind of prefer the Doctor to be. But that's fine. It's just a different choice. I think that is
but as long as it's someplace.
Yeah.
As long as he lands somewhere.
Somewhere consistent.
It's funny, it's funny the comedy elements in what is one of the darkest episodes as far as people getting killed,
crushed.
Cybermen getting shot in the mouth, the torture scene,
Litton's torture scene,
and the bloody stumps of hand, like
crazy.
That's the stuff that I did not like. It was like, just dial it back a little bit.
Yeah.
Like it's this silly sort of fun thing in some scenes, and in other scenes that you're going a little hardcore.
Yeah, apparently this story was singled out for the amount of violence that it had. I think I read somewhere also, like in Australia, they gave it a mature rating, which is one of the only like handful of Doctor Who stories that they did that specifically for the violence.
I mean, how many times do you remember seeing blood?
Yeah, no.
In Doctor Who, like
not
where
really.
It's pooling at where his hand stumps were. It's just weird, just a weird scene. That trying to figure out the some of the plot elements around the Cybermen's plan, and again, maybe fever. Why did they need 2 time ships? Like, they have a time ship, right, that they don't quite understand how to use, and that's a thing, like,
yeah.
and then they want to get the TARDIS as well, so that they have two. Why do they need the second one?
Their plan didn't rely on having the TARDIS. That was just a bonus time ship. I don't see. That's weird. It doesn't seem to make any sense.
They talk about like, oh, they
we'll
can't
have
get
this
the,
too.
you know.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what this other time ship was capable of. I mean, maybe the TARDIS is just a more powerful ship.
And here's the other thing that I don't understand. And again, people are groaning. I can hear you groaning, and I fully expect the tweets to come in like, duh. But so it's 1985,
yes.
right? And it's 1986 that the Earth destroy the Cybermen's planet. Correct?
Well, that the Doctor, yes.
Right. So where they are next year, obviously in the Doctor's past, this has happened.
Yes.
But in a linear timeline,
they will
is
destroy
in the future.
Mundus. Yes.
So, but the Cybermen, before their planet's been destroyed, are already in a position after their planet's been destroyed because they're already with the Cryons and they've already subjugated the Cryons, and like, how shouldn't that have happened after? Shouldn't they be going in the past to stop their home planet from getting destroyed? Like, how did they?
Right.
How does it
How
work?
did they get to 1985? So where's the time ship coming from? Because they're waiting for it to arrive or something, and
I don't know, but like the Cryons are already enslaved.
I know. You're right.
Like they've already lost their planet, which only happens after
the destruction of Mundus.
Cybermen's planet gets destroyed, yet we're a year before that event has happened.
Right. So they've taken the time ship back already in order to divert Halley's Comet. But they haven't actually diverted
the
Halley's
Cryons aren't on the time ship because they go to the Cryons' home planet.
So
they
took
whole
all of
planet into
Talos with them.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there's something in there that makes sense. I mean, obviously, in all this time stuff that they're doing.
No, wait a minute.
Angers Gallifrey, and it's Gallifrey that does that signal that draws the Doctor there. So that part was like, okay, that makes sense. But then when I was thinking about it, I'm like, all right, well, they go into the planet of the Cryons. The Cryons should be completely in control, and everything should be fine. You know what I mean? Like, because they haven't gotten...
Yeah.
But they're already enslaved. They already hate the Cybermen. They've already are warning, you know, they even say it, like, we've accepted our fate. Because the Doctor, they bring up the idea that it's like, well, if you let... Like, it's in the Cryons' best interest for the Earth to get destroyed anyway. Because if that happens, the Cybermen never lose their planet. If they never lose their planet, they never invade the Cryons' planet. And then she's like, well, no, we understand that, but we've accepted our fate.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, your fate doesn't happen for another year.
Unless they are already in that future. I see what you're saying. Like, what's happening on Telos would be something that happens post-1986.
Yes.
So whenever are they in the future? When they get transported to Telos, are they actually not just going through space, but also to time? Like, are they in the future there?
Maybe we're going in the future to tell us, and we went in the past just to bring up the fact that it happens, because the Doctor tells Perry it happens a year from now.
Right.
And they just add that to confuse everybody, instead of just having the story take place in the future, and they're trying to get to the past to undo this event, which would make sense.
Any sense.
So, again,
Shoot.
Fever,
Wait, I'm really confused by it now.
Perhaps I missed a detail or something, but that's sort of where we're at.
Boy, it seemed to make sense at the time, but I think you need to watch every story while completely in a fever state.
I mean, actually, well, you saw when I saw how the source code of the universe works, so I think I'm cracking through everything as a fraud. It's all breaking down.
Okay.
One note we should say,
important.
too, and I don't know if this is going to carry over for most of Series 22, or Season 22, rather, is these stories are in 2 parts instead of 4 parts. So this was a Part 1, which is about 45 minutes, and a Part 2, which is about 45 minutes.
Right.
I don't love that format. I don't know how you feel about it.
It's fine.
I mean, you can do it in 2 sittings, I guess, instead of 4.
And apparently,
although I tend to...
in syndication, it was aired as 4 parts. So they added 2 cliffhangers into it. But, either way, it was fine. I actually really liked... going back to kind of the review of the story, I liked the first episode of the two better. I really like the
More,
idea
yeah.
of being set on the TARDIS with the interaction of Perry and the Doctor and furthering that relationship. Obviously, I really like that. But then present day Earth, seeing Linton and his gang, and they're going to do a diamond heist. I really like that. I thought this could be a really cool genre thing that they're going to do with the story, and does carry through most of the first episode. So I kind of like that back and forth where we had what was going on in the TARDIS, then you see what's going on with Linton and his crew and how they're going to do it. And then there was the duplicity there where one of his crew, Russell, was actually a undercover cop, which is really awesome. So there's a lot of story happening there, going through the tunnels and finally finding the Cybermen and not knowing what Linton's plan was when he surrenders to them was kind of interesting. Side note, since I mentioned him, Russell, the undercover cop, the actor is Terry Malloy, who played the third actor to play Davros.
Oh,
so they get to reunite in this one. Linton and Russell, Terry Malloy as Russell. Apparently, I read this, I didn't know this, but that actor was guaranteed a role on Doctor Who later where he didn't have to wear prosthetics. So he got to come back as someone else. Anyway, which I thought was really interesting. So you get to have, unfortunately he dies at the end of the first episode, but there was all this other subplot, which was very interesting. But
so
then,
we can talk a little bit about that.
But then, I'm sorry, just to finish.
Yeah.
Then you have a third subplot happening on Telos, where you have the humanoids that the slaves that are trying to escape. So you're cutting between these three stories back and forth, and that just seemed like a lot because not any one of them was moving forward enough. I don't know. It was
well, you brought that up that you could, if you were going to cut something. The two slaves plot doesn't need to be there at all.
Perhaps. I mean, because they just die at the end.
What did you get out of that?
You get nothing.
They do get gunned down in a hallway, right?
One gets fried against a door, and then the other two get shot down and didn't do anything. And the only thing that came out of that whole thing was that Linton gets captured, which is kind of what he wanted from the beginning. Obviously, didn't want to get turned into a Cyberman, but he wanted to get to the Cybermen.
Right. Yeah, he's trying to thwart their plan. There's no consequence to them. They shouldn't be in it. It was sort of cool to see people that are attempted to be turned into Cybermen that fail, and what a bummer that must be. You're just walking around like, I'm not even good enough to be a Cyberman. I got my dumb metal arms. Metal Arms McGee. And then that other guy is kind of a horrible person too, because he's making his friend wear that dumb hat, and the guy can't breathe. Yeah. I'm like, oh, he's gonna die. Did you think he was gonna die? I thought he was gonna walk him to death because he's saying I can't breathe. He's trying to sit down. He's like, no, go.
Oh no, I didn't.
And nothing happened. It's just a hard walk.
Yeah, I didn't think he would have cared, but no, I didn't think he was gonna die. I didn't think their plan was gonna succeed. It just whatever. But yeah.
All right, to back up a little bit, sure. we have a distress signal originating somewhere from Earth. Mm-hmm. The Doctor goes down to investigate. As you said, simultaneously we see Linton, who the last we saw him, and I should point out I was wrong. In Resurrection of the Daleks, we talked. I had assumed that all of the humans working for the Daleks were those clones that they made, because we remember he was making a Peter Davison Dalek and a Tegan Dalek or whatever.
Yep.
This gets established that he's not a clone. He's just a mercenary type, like a bad dude.
Yep.
I guess from a planet of bad dudes or whatever that do things for money. So just a correction on that. He's trying to do a diamond heist. He's got his little crew together. They're going to go into the tunnels, but you figure out that he's actually not doing what he says he's doing. He's looking for the Cybermen because I guess he knows they're there because he had answered a distress signal from the Cryons, right? And then he establishes their
but
long-term
I guess it's not the Cryons
connection.
From the future then, because unless they sent their distress call into the past.
Again,
how does this
doesn't
work?
make a lot of sense. But they have their little, you got mail relationship, him and the Cryon woman. And I thought they felt like they should have been more of a love thing going on, because it was like, that's sort of what it was, right? But you never...
Wow.
I took it that
you were thwarted there.
Fell in love with that Cryon woman, and that's why he was doing all this.
That was...
Because he is a terrible person. He was a terrible person in the previous part.
He was just...
And then all of a sudden
all
he's
about money.
Redeemed in this part.
It was just about the money. Like, he wasn't...
Was it about the diamonds?
No.
Was he getting diamonds from them because they cry diamonds or whatever their
basically.
gift is.
Yeah.
So whatever his motivation is, he does that. He's got his little crew.
I don't know
with
that.
him.
I'm sorry. Just to get back to your point. I don't know that he was necessarily redeemed, and I think that's an important thing because that's how the entire story ends with the Doctor, kind of.
Yeah, that's the point of the story.
Flagellating
I think, is the
himself
fact that you can't judge people.
Right, but Linton, he's a mercenary, like a pure mercenary. He would just do whatever someone who paid him. So he worked for. Worked to free Davros previously. Who knows what other things he did. And he was just working for the Cryons because he's going to get paid, presumably. I don't think there was a love story there. That's entirely a fever dream.
That's your story. In my story, he was a terrible mercenary until his heart was thawed, ironically, by a frozen woman.
That's ironic.
When he fell in love with her and realized that her people were in such turmoil, or yet to be in turmoil as the timeline doesn't quite work out.
Yeah.
And then he decided that he was going to help them. And the Doctor wishes that he had just said what he was doing and he wouldn't have died. And he dies. I thought also at the end, did you think at the end, I was like, okay, well, he's going to save him, or they're at least going to take the body to the Cryons and have a funeral or something. No, they just leave him there. Just leave the dead body.
That's fine.
Little dumb half tubes coming out of him, and he's sort of half a Cyberman.
Yeah. Well, he explodes at the end anyway, so no big deal.
Yeah. Did Perry say Cyber man several times? Like these Cybermans. I felt like
that's just her. That's her Baltimore accent. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Assuming that's the case.
Although you're consistently saying Cybermen, which is kind of fun. Said the Cybermen.
Hey, the Cybermen.
It's the Cybermen. Okay, so I just have to mention real quick, not to be outdone by the Doctor's costume, Perry decides to spend the entire story in the middle of a jazzercise class. She stepped out of her class.
Yes.
That is wow! It was. I mean, she had a nice belt though. The pink and teal with the belt was a nice look.
It's not a good color.
I mean, it looked fine on her.
She's bouncing. She's like sort of just exploding out of the outfit.
Yeah.
It's like 30% cleavage, and then the other 60% is belt. And then she's sort of doing her thing, and they even get to a point where they have to go to a cold place, and they're like, you gotta put something else on.
But they didn't.
Could you just put a longer pantsuit on?
But they didn't. She was still freezing there.
She changes clothes though. They put her in a full outfit. They do change clothes.
When she
go to the tape.
Because they're
in the frozen,
they're in Telos, underneath in the tombs, what they call the tombs, in the frozen area, and she completely mimes being cold because she blows on her hands very actorly.
She does that.
So
but she does get out of that outfit and into another outfit
later. Oh, okay, but not at that point when they say it's going to be cold. Anyway, okay.
No, I think it's right before they go to the thing, because I feel like they say you're going to need another outfit. Because you're going to be cold, and then the next time you see her, she's in a different outfit.
I don't think she was that different because she looked the same. Okay, sure. I remember that line. I just don't remember her actually changing. Regardless,
what
not
about
the most
Perry,
thing.
though? What about Perry as a companion?
As the whiniest companion?
I don't like her. She's so whiny and just, I mean, is it going to get better?
She did nearly get strangled to death by the Doctor. So
she did. No, she should have left. I don't know why she's here.
That is the real problem.
I'm finding her less than enjoyable. I don't know.
Yeah, she is very whiny, but she doesn't seem to be serving a whole lot of other purpose. Like when some other companions have a character trait that isn't necessarily the best, they at least have some other redeeming qualities that at least serve the story. For example, Adric. Not necessarily the best character to start off with, but at least he served a function until Nisa came along and then did that thing for him better. So I don't see what Perry's really bringing to the table except for her strong Baltimore attitude. So, yeah, she's not doing great. I wrote down how whiny she is. I'm scared, Doctor. You don't seem to understand that. So she just keeps she doesn't like him, and she's also terrified.
Yeah, they don't have a great relationship.
It's not good.
But, I don't hate her, and I'm still open to it, and it's fine.
But to have
it's all good.
But to have two main characters that I'm not terribly fond of is difficult.
It's not a good period. And as I said, I did like this story in terms of what we've seen so far, I would not put this on a list, any list of my favorite stories. So
Yeah. The other thing that kills me in this, and it just runs throughout, and I noted it towards the beginning of the story, is how uneven the music is throughout. Sometimes it was okay. It was just, fade into the background. But for the most part, it was just terrible, terrible synth music. Completely inappropriate. Like when the TARDIS, they end up, which is really nice for the fans, shows up at the scrapyard. I Am Foreman's scrapyard, which was very cool.
Yes,
but
that was cool.
The music that they play in the background is some weird like carnival thing that's just doesn't fit. Throughout the entire story,
agree.
it was distracting and it just bothered me and made the whole experience less than it already was.
It feels very disjointed and that feels to be as a result of not having enough time and maybe not caring as much. Whoever's overseeing all of these things, or whatever the reason is, I agree with you. But we should talk about that.
Yeah.
Or not about that necessarily, but about the TARDIS, in that they fix the chameleon circuit.
Basically,
and then the
he's
TARDIS
fixing
starts
it.
working.
He's trying to fix it. It doesn't quite work.
But then all of a sudden at the end, and maybe I blacked out, but all of a sudden it was back to the normal TARDIS appearance.
Yes.
When it should have changed, but it didn't.
It didn't.
So is it broken again?
Yes.
And I missed the line where they said it broke again?
I don't think they explained it. I think it's just broken again.
All right, because it was working. It turned into piano, and it turned
into... it was sort of working.
Fancier.
In that it was changing, but it wasn't changing appropriately, which is the running gag. So, it turned into a big fancy wardrobe in the middle of the scrapyard. It turned into a pipe organ, and then it turned into a gate, which was strange. So none of those really worked. It was changing, but it wasn't actually fixed. So I think...
Yeah, and I think the doctor had said, the doctor's like, it's learning, or it's whatever.
It's been out of practice,
Yep, and then it goes back to the police box, and he's like, he taps it, he's happy to see it.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, well, why was that a part of this?
Why bother? Yeah.
And, are they going to fix it, and then in some other story it's going to break permanently, or they'll never bring this up again, and it'll always be a police box?
Yeah, I mean, it is strange.
From here on.
There's that, and the fact that they go to Trotter's Lane to Foreman's scrapyard. Both of those things are... touching on the bigger mythos of Doctor Who, but they don't serve any purpose. So, like you said, the chameleon circuit, that works for a little bit, and it's kind of funny, I guess, because the Doctor, plays the pipe organ, and they can't figure out how to get into it, and okay, I guess that's fine. Maybe it was just for the levity of it. Nothing really comes to the fact that they go to this scrapyard. He does have a nice line where he is talking to Perry and calls her Sarah. Calls her Susan. Jesus, I'm sorry. Calls her Susan. So that was okay, but it didn't further anything. It was just kind of a throwaway when it could have been more interesting.
Again, he's still sort of unstable, and then when he says it again, when he sees Foreman, and he says it, that he's not crazy. She thinks he's still getting her name wrong. So that sort of was nice. That was a cool little...
It was cool. It just didn't
do anything. It doesn't pay off, really. What else? What else do we have for the story? I mean, what about that queen, or she's not a queen necessarily, but the leader of the Cryons?
The one who was trapped?
This whole thing where she's going to suicide bomb herself. But before that, we have to watch her sort of melt to death. Like, there's so many scenes in this that are just like these long, extended scenes of brutality for no reason.
Yeah.
They throw her out in the warmth, and that they have to be under 0 degrees. No, she's just going to get...
she starts bubbling, And it was actually... it was kind of was it her? No, it was the other one. When they have a fight with the Cybermen, and one of the Cryons gets killed. It was actually a kind of cool effect. It was like this kind of brilliant white as she's, boiling to death. And then, Flast also similar thing. So, there's no need for that. Just random death everywhere.
I like that species, though, and I like the concept of
species
that has to be cold.
The costume...
I didn't mind any of the makeup. I mean, I thought it wasn't
horrible.
Perfect, but it was interesting. I mean, I haven't really seen anything like that. Again, it felt very, elongated and sort of just weird. I liked it.
Listeners, just so you know,
You didn't
Eric is moving in a very Stevie Nicks sort of witchy woman.
Well, dude, I love Stevie Nicks. I mean, come on.
Which is nice.
Stevie Nicks should have been the new Doctor.
That'd be amazing. I really dislike the Cryons. The mask makeup was horrible. It just looked like
What about the vocal delivery?
The way that they speak was terrible. The fact that the ladies, the rest of the costume was just ridiculous. Spandex with like silly little capes, and like it just looked
capes.
so bad.
Yeah.
And they had these long fingernails, so every one of the actresses just kept moving their fingers the whole time. And there's one scene when they're all with Perry, and they're in a hallway, and there's 4 of them around her, and they all bring their fingertips around her face and behind her,
Yes.
and they're just wiggling their fingers. I don't know why.
I can't disagree with any of that.
It was horrible.
You're 100% right, but for whatever reason, I'm okay with it. I don't know what that says about me. But yeah,
you like the
that
concept.
Scene was very.
You like the concept
that
of the
scene with
aliens
Perry in the hallway.
that had to. Yeah, that's horrible. That had to be, exist only in cold, and yeah, that's interesting, I guess. But I don't know. The finger acting just kind of killed me. So there's that.
So we talked about the slaves. We talked about.
So let's talk about them a little bit more. So their plan was to escape. They were going to use, I guess, the time ship to escape. Whatever ship they were going to take needed 3 people to fly it.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was, I guess, why they needed the head of the Cybermen.
Well,
it was important that they had the head because they needed that to fly the ship.
Right. Because they were going to have a third person. That guy apparently dies in the escape or what have you. Right. So they're going to get ahead of a Cyberman. How is it so easy for them to just overpower the Cybermen throughout?
Well, they used a series of nods and winks, so they knew when it was time to turn on them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're over a hill, and this one cyber patrol comes waltzing up the hill, and they just jump out and like take a stance. It's like a full 5 seconds as he kind of winds up the bat and just smacks his head, like not literally knocks his head off. Literally,
no, and then they got a break
knocks
into
his head
cyber
off.
control.
It just makes no sense. So that's cool.
No, it wasn't a well thought out plan. And the fact that the ship requires 3 people at minimum is said many times.
Or 2 people and a head is the other requirement.
Yeah, so that, like, what does the head do? You just need somebody.
But then they aren't going to use the head because they want to scoop out the innards so he can wear it like a mask and sneak in.
It doesn't really add up unless they don't realize you need 3 people.
No, they say it.
And they needed the head to just get past security. Maybe that was his plan. Always was to dress his friend up as a Cyberman to do the old, this is my prisoner. I mean, I don't know. Who knows?
Touching on the head for a second, because I found this to be odd. At least maybe it's just in our current Doctor Who incarnations of the Cybermen. They are a mix of mechanical and organic. So it's a humanoid that has had their some parts removed and replaced with the machine. We see, in later Who now, like Bill cries when she's a Cyberman, and the tears come out, whatever. So there's organics in the head, but now twice. So either they knock the head off and are going to scoop out all of the remaining skull candy inside there and pull it all out, and wear a big bloody helmet. That seems weird. Also, but then again, when the Doctor has his plan to distract the Cybermen because their one weakness is they can't leave a fallen guy behind, he sets off which is stupid.
Yeah,
that's dumb.
If they get a distress call, that they have to respond to it.
I'll put a pin in that for a second. So he finds a dead Cyberman, rips open the head, and there's just a big glowing button in there that he pushes. So there's
I know.
So there's nothing.
Like, where are the human parts?
There's no human parts.
It's just a robot.
It's just all robot, right?
You just build robots. You don't need humans.
I guess not.
Just build robots. Yeah.
That seemed strange. So I mean, maybe it's just an inconsistency about what the idea of the Cybermen has become over the years, but that seemed really strange to me. I don't know. Maybe it's conversion. Maybe the only way that you can build the robot is piece by piece, adding a part and then removing a part. And I don't know. It seemed really strange.
The question about the whole previous episode or previous story, Resurrection of the Daleks.
Yeah.
So at the end of that, what's his name? Linton escapes, and he has 2 cops with him. I remember.
think there were 3 of them walking away at the end.
Where are the 2 cops?
So we see 2 cops
Still on Earth.
We see 2 cops
We
in
do
this
see
story.
him in this, right?
Yeah. What's your question?
Are they still on Earth?
Well, we see 2 cops from the beginning of the first story when we have the heist going on and Linton's
Yes.
gang's going from place to place. You see them getting followed by 2 cops, and then they
Right,
have a
and
fight
then the
with
doctor
the 2
and
cops.
Perry pull guns on them.
Yeah.
Remember? And
Yep,
then
and they get
the doctor
handcuffed
comes
and
up
knocked
and he's
up.
dressed as the cop.
Yep.
Right.
Oh,
I'm
so where are
assuming
they
don't
now?
kill those. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Oh.
so are they? They're not regular police.
No.
Like, so they're either Dalek clones
Right, maybe.
or they're bad guys that work for like. Where are they now?
Right.
Are they just still wandering around Earth?
What is their story is what you're trying to say. Can we
What
get
is
a
their
big
story?
finish
And
story about them?
I'm also trying to find out, are they Dalek clones? Because they had a whole scene in Resurrection of the Daleks showing they can make clones of people within seconds, as we saw.
Sometimes
they had
within
a Tegan
seconds.
ready to go.
Yeah.
Were the police those things? And are they still under Dalek control? Are they, we'll never see them again.
We'll
I
never see them
understand
again.
that. But I was just wondering, Linton's with them, and then they're part of his plan, but then they disappear and no one mentions them again.
Yeah, you're right. They do just kind of disappear. I don't know.
Yeah, they're in that scene. As far as I know, that's the last time we see him. The doctor, they get the
They
gun.
slip
and
the handcuffs
turn
and
the
they're
tables.
out. Yeah.
Oh, and Perry, what does she do to get the cops got a gun on her, and she throw something at him like dust
brick
or something,
dust.
and he drops the gun.
Yeah, he
somehow.
covers his face because she threw brick dust in his eyes, and she grabs the gun.
That's come on.
Yeah, there's a lot of
What a
gunplay.
terrible fake cop that guy is.
There's a lot of gunplay in this story, which I guess we should just get used
too
to.
much guns.
I mean,
Too much
it's
guns. Doctor shooting the gun, all the doing like rolls and stuff at the end. There's that like terribly choreographed action
God.
scene.
yes. That scene, oh my God, I had to write down exactly what happened because it was just so horrible. But we had the doctor with Linton who's half converted. Linton saying like "kill me." The doctor hands him a knife.
It's a show for kids.
I don't want to live. Murder me. Cyber leader, I guess it was, or which one was it? Was it the cyber leader or was it the cyber controller? Whatever. Comes over to Linton. He stabs him, and green fluid goes everywhere. He drops the gun. The doctor grabs the gun just as 2 more Cybermen come in. The doctor shoots one. That one spins around and shoots the other one, who then shoots him back again.
Yeah.
And then the doctor shoots the cyber controller. There's a lot of shooting.
It's a lot of
Not to
shooting and
mention
a lot of violent stabbing.
The green
It's
flying
just-
everywhere and just stab,
It's
stab, stab.
horrifying.
It was a
yeah,
lot.
I'm dialing. Even though I said I sort of like the story, it's not good.
Yeah, I mean,
The
plus
more I think about it, it's
you
just
had
like,
okay. So that whole horrible and that choreography. You're right, was just ridiculously bad. Then let's just jump back to the end of the first part of this story. Why are there like 20,000 Cybermen inside the TARDIS? How did they all get in there? Why is the TARDIS just full of Cybermen?
I don't know.
How did they get it?
Oh well, they had taken it over, right?
How?
So they remember that the Cybermen get into the TARDIS,
How?
right? And then
How did they get into
they
the
have
TARDIS?
Perry as a hostage.
Did Perry let them in?
I can't remember how they actually got
Yeah,
in.
that's what I'm
Did
saying.
they-
How did they actually get in?
I don't know. I
mean,
can't remember. I mean,
do they-
again, I was in a fever state, so maybe.
I mean,
did they lead the doctor?
I
Did
guess
the doctor
no,
lead them
because
there?
they go in
with
and there's
Perry?
Cybermen there, and it's just full of Cybermen. They're having a party. There's a couple guys in the back are baking a cake. I don't know why it was full of them. Isn't it supposed to be?
Maybe Perry let him in. I don't
Isn't
know.
it supposed to be impregnable? Like that's part of it. Like very few beings can get into. Is that only when it's in flight? Did Perry leave the door open? How did they get in? Okay, I'm sorry. Just bugs me. I don't know how that happened. And then it ends up with gunplay in the control room, in the console room. Russell shoots one in the mouth, like you said, with a gun. Just bullet right to the brain.
Rough. very rough.
And then he gets shot.
Now this
and dies.
This director did he only do this story and Resurrection? Are these his only 2 credits?
This would be the second of the 2 that he's done. I think that's
So
it.
it's just
that's
this
it.
for
Yep.
him, right? Because I didn't think he was the best director, but who knows what conditions he was working under. But
Yeah.
I didn't like. But you're right. I mean, I think you hit on some things that are interesting, which is
Thanks.
were a lot of cool things, like the back and forth thing in the beginning where it's like, you got a heist movie going on.
Yeah.
And it felt very adult. Like,
It did.
It felt like this is not quite a kid's thing, and in a good way. Like, they're...
Mature.
that part was
Yeah.
cool. And then you have all this other stuff in back and forth. So it wasn't totally terrible, but the parts that... The action scenes and some of the choices and how long some scenes went on, I felt like was not the best work we've seen.
Yeah. What's funny, just not to dwell on the gunplay too much more, just one more thing. I found it interesting when we still think it's a diamond heist, and Linton has his crew there, and he brings out this gun that he's going to use for the heist, and they're all the criminals are taken aback by this gun. Like, hey, I didn't sign on for this. I mean, I might be a horrible, hardened criminal, but no guns. So he has this gun that he's
Yeah,
going to...
well, it's not America, Dan.
Right. This is... I mean, maybe I'm just a little sensitive to it at the moment, but it just seemed that was interesting that happened. And then throughout the rest of the story, guns, people dying everywhere, guns. It just seems strange that they would even make reference to it, and then all of a sudden just, whatever. We'll just lean into it and kill everything.
All right. So do you have anything else for this one?
Oh, you're done with it already, are you?
I think. I mean, do we have anything? I was just going to ask you if you didn't, comparing it to Twin Dilemma, about how you're feeling about the Doctor. But if you have more stuff about the particular story, we should cover that first.
No, I will say I'm liking him better, even if he is going to be erratic and unstable, even though he says the contrary. I'm intrigued by it, at least. I want to see where he's going to go with it as he settles in and kind of figures out what the character is. So, yes, I like him better. That's fine. I will say at one moment, Joe walked by as I was watching this on TV and said, "Is that David Hasselhoff?" So that was kind of fun.
I would agree with you. I mean, I feel better having watched this, even though we talked about all the bad things about it.
Yeah.
Than I did watching Twin Dilemma, where I feel like, okay, I can see it getting better, and I could see this Doctor getting better.
Yeah.
Over time. So I feel like, because watching some of the Twin Dilemma, I was like, oh boy, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this run. But so this is
I gotta say,
better than where we were.
The first 3/4 of this story, I was okay with it, and I was interested. The last quarter of it, I actually just wrote down, I'm counting down till it's over, and I just kept checking the time on it. It just dragged on, and the points didn't make any sense to me.
Do you think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're now watching 45 minutes, whereas like you get a sort of a break when it's the end of the episode?
I don't
at least
know.
For me, where it's like 24 minutes. Sometimes it's easier to justify watching through some pointless scenes.
No, I mean, because it was at the end.
30 minutes in, and you're like 15 minutes left.
No, I mean, maybe, but to me it was just because it was at the end where there were all these different plots that kind of came together, and then by that point the C plot of the criminals going to the time ship and then getting killed without serving any purpose, that had happened. So this is just, and the finger acting was happening. So much bad stuff happened at the end.
Right. Speaking of criminals,
yes.
Who is the dope that is like the guy? Is like the real bad guy, not the guy that's a cop, but the bad guy that's like his sidekick that gets captured with
Griffiths.
him.
Yeah, I think.
How long did it take for that guy to realize that his friend was an alien? Like Linton pretty much says, "I'm not human. I'm an alien.
Yeah.
I want to work for you, Cybermen." And then like 5 minutes later, the guy's like, "Hey, maybe we can get out of here if we say this, because these." It's like he's an alien,
right?
Like
right.
You haven't. It hasn't. He's so dense. He hasn't figured it out. He still thinks this is another human dude that they're gonna rob something. It's like, oh, for God's sakes! And when a guy that you're working for standing next to you says, "I'm an alien,"
yeah,
He didn't even flinch.
When he says this,
he didn't even look over.
When he says
to
this
be
in
like,
front of like
"What?"
robot monsters, yeah, you should just
Business as usual. No, nothing going on here.
Struggling to-
Maybe because he was thinking of something else and he didn't realize what the guy was saying. I thought that was a little. I was like, "You're not going to act this?
Nope.
No, unless this guy has a line.
Nope.
He's not acting.
I'm just gonna wait.
You get no reaction from that guy. He should have did one of those like wide eye, rubbed his eyes and like look over. What? Tossing the beer bottle behind him.
Another thing that is actually not important necessarily, but something to note: we have a new Sonic device. So he has a Sonic.
Right? What is that?
Sonic Lance. So it's like a Sonic knife. Interesting. But this is the first
They are
Sonic
just
they've
bad
had
ideas, I think,
since the Visitation, when they wrote out the Sonic Screwdriver. So that's interesting. We have one. It's just the same old thing of like, I'll just use this as my multi-purpose device that can kind of get us out of any plot device that we need.
And assuming there's more than one of these,
because he leaves it
lances, 'cause
behind.
It's used as a trigger for the bomb that takes forever to go off.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It just needed to
So
warm
these guys
up
are
enough.
You literally watch people moving packages and furniture around that room.
What were they
Like, come
doing in
on.
there? What?
I don't know.
They had
Just
left
moving boxes.
Right. They
There's
had
no
left
reason for them to be in there.
Flast in there for who knows how long. She was just imprisoned in this storage room for some reason. She makes a point of saying that the Cybermen left this material behind, this combustible material behind, because they didn't realize that it was combustible over when it gets warm enough, and there's just so much of it. It's just a common mineral, so they just have it left there, and she's trapped in the storage room. But then at the end, it's just full of Cybermen moving boxes around, because now all of a sudden it didn't seem to make any sense.
No,
Okay.
doesn't make
Okay,
any
good. I didn't miss anything there.
It's all good.
Is it?
So this is the end of. This is not the end of the Cybermen, right? Are we supposed to believe the Cybermen are also existing? Because they all get killed at the end.
I mean,
everyone we see gets killed.
Oh,
this isn't as far as a race of aliens.
I don't think we're supposed to assume. I mean, we know they come back anyway, so I don't know if this is the last that we see them in Classic Who. I'm guessing not. I'm guessing we're going to see him again, but.
Yeah, I can't remember the Cybermen story we did before this to even remember what the fate of the Cybermen was, or where they're supposed to be, or what they're supposed to be doing.
The other thing we didn't actually talk about quickly is just that it does reference a story we did do, Tomb of the Cybermen, which was from Troughton. So they talk about the cyber controller because the Doctor assumed that the cyber controller died in that story. Yeah, I mean, but that also took place on Telos? Tomb of the Cybermen was on Telos?
Yes, right? I don't remember. I don't really remember.
I think that's right. I could always look that up. So, I mean, it was just interesting that it does. It took place in Telos in the 25th century. So, in the future? Wait, so that doesn't make sense.
None of it makes sense.
Oh, my God, wait, no.
When you start to think about it.
So, I'm reading this.
Like,
the 25th
because
century.
It's a big deal. Right.
So,
it doesn't make sense.
He thought he was destroyed, but then they're back in time. We must have missed a whole chunk of story. They just didn't bother to show us where they had a time ship and went back in time.
Right, and they do have a time ship. Like, we know they have a time ship.
But they took a whole planet back in time.
I guess. But also, the fact that they have this time ship is a big deal.
It's huge.
Like, you don't get the sense that they have time travel before.
No.
So it's like a different thing. They don't really
You're
know
right,
how to use it.
because they don't really know how to use it. So they didn't use it yet. I don't understand.
So it's got a lot of weird.
It doesn't make any sense.
I feel like when you're writing it, you're like, oh, it happened in the past because it happened years ago. Not like you're not caring that the timeline of whatever
about this show that has time
always
travel
happening.
as a central premise. They didn't bother to. I mean, hey, people who are listening to this right now, if we are completely off base, please feel free to correct us. You can tweet at us or send us an email. I know we have in the past been corrected.
Will. I know someone in particular is going to be tweeting at us.
He's already frothing at the
over.
mouth and yelling at us right now. So please, we are genuinely confused by this. So I'm gonna have to go look this up because I didn't realize that until you kind of pointed it out, Eric. I didn't realize how disjointed it was. So I'm sorry that I didn't go try to find like a flowchart and diagram this myself. So if anyone can explain it to us, please tell us or confirm to us that it's just bonkers and doesn't actually make sense. That'd be great.
All right,
but
so that is
this one.
Yep. More.
Nope.
I was going to say our next story is Vengeance on Varos.
Is it just as good? I'm hoping it's just as good.
Yeah, don't know anything about it, even less about that one than I did about this one.
Great.
That is going up, that will go up on
March 28th.
March 28th, yep. So you will need to have watched it before the 25th,
Yeah.
I think.
We'll
which is that Sunday, so get us some feedback, theolddoctorwhoshow.com.
We'll tweet at you guys to see if we can get any information from you guys, what you thought about that, just like we did with this one. So, on Twitter, we had asked you folks what your thoughts were, and we got a few responses here. Our friend Daniel Smith says, Attack of the Cybermen is personally my favorite Colin Baker story, and if in your review you aren't impressed with this, well, then you're out of luck, really, because this is as good as it gets. But Vengeance on Varus seems to be popular, and I did enjoy the Trial of a Time Lord. Okay, we do like this Colin Baker story better than the 1.5 bit of Colin Baker we've seen previously. So okay, so far, Daniel, we're in agreement with you. This is our favorite Colin Baker story in terms of his performance.
I would agree with
anyway, looking forward to Vengeance on Varus though, and Trial of a Time Lord. Paul Farber says, Colin Baker delivers a comical performance facing Cybermen who threaten 2 planets. By contrast, everyone the Doctor and Perry meet perish. Boy, howdy do they. Ambitious story packed with confusing amount of continuity casual fans won't appreciate. Hold that. Still potential epic, but doesn't quite deliver. So Paul is saying this is an ambitious story packed with a confusing amount of continuity casual fans will appreciate. If you're referring to the fact that it actually specifically talks about previous stories, like the 10th Planet and the Destruction of Mondus, Tomb of the Cybermen, and the Resurrection of the Daleks, that's true. I mean, if you were a casual fan and hadn't seen those stories, or kind of knew that history, a lot would be kind of just being lost on you. But if you're talking about continuity problems, Paul, please explain to us how the continuity of the story works with the time travel and moving Telos into the past, because I seriously don't get it. So, Paul, I'm looking at you, buddy. Please help us out. Lastly, Nerdy Shelty says to us, I think this is the worst one of his run. FYI, Colin Baker was told to play the Doctor as unlikable. It was written that way. I really think he would have been fine with a different production team and not being in that horrible costume.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's unfortunate we'll never know.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the part about him being told to be unlikable or not.
Yeah.
But I think he would be fine with a different production team and the costume or whatever. Because, as I mentioned, like the Big Finish stuff that I've heard is good. So I think if you get the right story, Colin Baker's a good enough actor that it could have been good.
Yeah, I don't have any doubt that he's a good actor. I think everything we've seen, he actually is a good actor. It's just strange choices for whatever reason, unfortunately. So thank you, folks, for responding to us on Twitter there. We also have a note from the website, from theolddoctorwhoshow.com on the Twin Dilemma episode page. This is from the Podbeam app. I don't know the Podbeam Android app, but apparently you can write reviews on the individual apps. Interesting. Okay, it says, this person seems to say, I seem to recall hearing that they didn't let Colin Baker play the Doctor the way he wanted. Certainly from the Big Finish audios, he's certainly a competent Doctor. Hey, are you the person that just reviewed that? Because that's exactly what you just said. That's interesting. I really would have liked to see Colin Baker play it in a different way. But maybe I'll take a listen to some of the Big Finish and see what he could have been instead.
Yeah, no, I would definitely recommend those. Those are really good.
Cool.
Yeah, so does that cover all of our feedback?
That's our feedback. If you guys...
We need more feedback, so if you want to write us, and we will read whatever you write, that's theolddoctorwhoshow@gmail.com.
Yep.
That's email. That's a great way to get your point across. Email.
It's the future.
It's for writing. iTunes reviews. Now that's where we really need you guys to shine. We look at the stats. We know there's a lot of you listening, and we only have 20-something, 25 reviews or something.
At least in the U.S. store. I know some of you are abroad, and we do get those every few weeks. We'll get a collection of any of those that have come in. So thank you.
Give us a written review.
Thank you for those.
Yeah, we will read whatever you write, whatever review you put up, we will read. What else do we have, Dan? As far as people getting in touch with us.
Yeah, the Twitter is a good way to do that. Check out the show page. You can go to theolddoctorwhoshow.com and you can check out the episode page that'll have the synopsis. It'll have all of the GIFs that we put together from that story. Those GIFs will also be on our Instagram account, which is where is that, Eric? That's Instagram.
TODW show.
Yep.
I think it's the same
as our Twitters.
Twitter.
TODW
So TODW show on Instagram or TODW show on Twitter, or you can go to Facebook, which is TODWS, the oddball out. That was the one that doesn't have the TODW show.
So sorry about that.
Should change that, and I haven't.
Who cares?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
All right, so is that it?
That's
Do we have
it,
anything
everybody.
else?
Thank you for listening.
All right, well, thank you for sitting through with us.
Boy, I think he's got a fever.
All right, bud.
All right. Bye, everybody.
All right, I'll see you, everyone. See ya.
Peace.